How are we doing today? How are we feeling about the substance bake and painting, the refresher asset this week? I made some good progress on my piece, learned a bit of cloth and hair. Oh, dang, that's cool. Still working on it. Yeah, it's not due today. It's due tomorrow at like 10 p.m. So y'all have some time to work on it. For the rest of the quarter, we're going to have the unique opportunity to cover topics that will help you solve the problems that you're interested in creating for yourself. Now, that sounded kind of weird the way I said that, but when you get to make what you want, how you want, you suddenly find challenges that maybe we didn't cover in class. And I want you to have that chance to be able to get some of those answers recorded for you here. So, that being the spirit of the rest of the quarter, let's go ahead and I suppose talk about our final. Yeah. Here we go. All right. So, at the very bottom, here we go. We've got your direct material asset refresher. Nice job. The work in progress is not mandatory. This is for funsies. I did not require it to be graded. I think I did that for anybody who found it helpful, but that's not going to remain true for the rest of the quarter though. So, let's go ahead and start off with the final overview. Final overview is just going to be a bit of a timeline of how the rest of the quarter is going to pan out. So you will be creating a single shot still life with environment in Unreal 4.26. I can handle 4.27 if that's what happens. I've got the install at home. However, I do not have it on campus, and you do not have it on campus. It is 4.26. So I'm going to recommend that you stay in this version of Unreal. The details of the final submission are posted in the final module. This is true. In addition, we will be doing work in progress presentations leading up to the final submission. Now, they're not formal presentations except for next week, Wednesday. This is going to be Wednesday. It's not a show me everything. What I want to see is the very beginnings of blockings for this. So I will post this on Wednesday when we come back. You've got to finish your asset. But this week, final overview is presented, prepping meshes for lighting, and final pre-plan is due. These are going to be the things that we will be focusing on this week. And next Wednesday, you will have your first work in progress due. You'll present this via screen share or discussion post. With what we'll be looking for are your blocked assets. These could be cubes, simple assets to help you stage what you're trying to create. Blocked lighting. It doesn't have to be beautiful yet. And you will receive a critique from me and from other people in this class. Now, the following week, you will have another presentation due next Wednesday. Except this one will be done in a discussion post. You don't have to present quite as formally as you did before. But you will have had to have addressed some of the feedback and critique you received the previous week. At this point, you should have completed geometry and meshes, and maybe some materials. For your final submission that is due, you will want to have your materials completed and your lighting pass done. And you will have also a showcase discussion post where you will post your final renders for everyone to see. This part here is really more to share your hard work. You don't have to comment on each other's stuff unless you want to. I encourage it. Feels good giving each other feedback. But not like we do have to for our work in progresses 1 and 2. All right, so do we have any questions so far? The details of what these work in progresses will require will come up as needed, but you still have your PBR direct material asset you're working on that's due tomorrow. But so let's talk about the final. Let's talk about the final presentation. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. Final. All right. So this guy here is going to be a total of 200 points. Now, you're going to create a scene in Unreal, and these are going to be the things that you'll be graded on. You will have to use 1 trim sheet and 1 tiling material. Can you use the trim sheet that you made? Yes, you may. In fact, you may use any of the materials or assets that you've created throughout the quarter. If you have assets you've worked on in previous classes you would like to implement, you may use them. But the thing is that this scene does need to make some sense. It can be a still life, but it should not be a non sequitur random asset. And I don't want you also worried about creating a 360 room populated with many things. To be clear, this is a single shot, meaning you will stage your camera and you will place assets in front of it. I'm going to recommend that you approach this with a still life approach and not so much a whole environment pull back, right? Just one shot, perhaps a table with a few assets on it. All right. This is going to be in Unreal, not in Unity. You will submit your entire Unreal project and 2 final renders from your camera view. This is what's going to be, woohoo. This is going to be part of your grade for the renders. Then, this Wednesday, I have due your first final checkpoint pre-planning discussion. This puppy here is worth 20 points and I'm going to give you time in class to work on it today and also on Wednesday because it's due at 10 p.m. on Wednesday. It's not due before class. So you've got a couple of days to work on this. And many of you have already started doing this. Since I told you what your final was going to be like, how many of you have started thinking about what you want to make? Okay. Okay, right on.
Question.
Me. Okay, cool. Did you have a question, Brandon?
I do. Do we have to stick to the style that we chose at the beginning of?
No.
Okay.
No.
So it can be whatever we want.
Whatever you want.
All right.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking about it now then.
Yay. Some of you might want to use those assets for just like, I don't want to work so much. I get it. That's okay. You can do that. You're allowed to do that. I will tell you, though, that if you work from a solid mood board and library of references that you'll make for yourself, your work will be cooler for it. You know, you're going to make a more interesting, probably story, because that typically is the reason that you're drawn to a lot of the content that you like to look at. Usually telling a cool story of some kind, even if it's not explicit, you know? Okay. So wonderful, wonderful. So for this, that is due end of day on Wednesday. And when I mean end of day, I mean 10 p.m. on Wednesday. I want you to submit a series of images, many images, not 1, not 4, many images. What does many mean? Exactly. I want to see what you think a lot is. Now, share your images here, embed them if you can. If not, you may share a link of a slide deck that you made via Google Slides or Microsoft. That's also fine, whatever you prefer. Making slide decks are kind of nice because you can put images on each slide very clearly. And in this presenter notes, you can describe what it is about the image that you are referencing specifically. It's important to not rely entirely on the image to do all of the work for you, even though I know a picture is worth 1,000 words. I agree. But when you have a series of images that you find all very interesting, and you don't know why you find each of them interesting, and it's time to get to work and use your references to inform your decisions, you're sometimes not exactly sure what you're looking at and why. So for your images here, I know 5 points for just the post of images. 15 points will go towards your ability to articulate what it is about these images that you are referencing. Can anybody give me an example of what you think I might mean in this discussion? I'd like to hear how you're interpreting it.
So like if you had a picture and it had like a window, but it also had like walls, floors, and all this stuff, but your focus is the window, you could say like, I like how the light brings in blah, blah, blah here, or the style that the form did this and that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. You can use images that seem almost non-relevant at all just for the sheer color palette. You know, like I really like this picture of the sunset because I liked how the colors looked on it. And I kind of want to go with a vibe like that. That works too. Some will have really beautiful lighting setups. And even though it might be a Gothic cathedral lighting setup, but you're making a living room, That's allowed. You can look at the lighting and see what it is about it that you like. I like the volumetric here. I like how they have the light hitting in through the window and hitting stuff. I want to try that effect, and etc. So it's okay to have images that maybe don't make a lot of sense together, but help you understand what you would like to attempt with regards to composition, perhaps your camera setup, maybe even also assets you want to make. I want to make a table and it's going to be a still life, but it's going to have a revolver and a shot of whiskey on it. You tell it I'm referencing like a Western and some ammo, and maybe it's got like an ornate 6-shooter pistol or something. Yeah. And have reference images in the final too. Oh, to submit for your final submission?
Yeah.
No, you don't have to do that.
Okay.
So this pre-planning discussion is worth 20 points. I'm considering that as part of like your overall final thing. You don't have to resubmit them because I can come back over here and look at them if I really want to. The thing is about references though, is that they're more for you than they are for me. I cannot, nor should I, judge your methods of how you use your references, in that, well, this image has this one volumetric lighting effect and you didn't quite do it exactly like that. So points, like, no, it's terrible. But these images should be inspiring to you to help you know how and what you want to make. I mean, if I were to say, okay, guys, make whatever you want, and then I didn't say anything to you for the rest of the quarter, you would feel really lost, right? Like, I can make anything, but how do I know if this is a good thing to make? I don't, like, sometimes too much freedom is too much. You can't get stuck. You get stuck, right? Okay. So this is more for you than me, but I'm giving you points for it. And I really want you to practice looking at the images you choose and why you chose them, and think about that and articulate that. So great example, Brendan. Thank you very much. You don't have to submit the references again with the final though. You don't have to do that. Okay. All right. I thought I had this posted, but it should be published now. Make sure we got here. All right. So, before I get started on showing you a few things that I believe that you will need for your final to make it look super sexy for your portfolio, how are your assets coming along? I heard that some of you are like, it's coming along. Do you have any current challenges, hurdles, or questions about that I can help you through now before we get started? Okay. I will be on campus today from 3 to 5 and tomorrow from 3 to 5 in N209. So if you would like to come in person, you can also share with me any concerns you have there too. And that's also okay. But if we don't have any quick summary and advice for UV unwraps for our objects, Saber, great question. Yes, let's talk about it. I'm really glad that you brought this up because it's actually a decent enough segue into what I will be showing you in a few minutes for lighting. So quick summary and advice for UV unwraps on objects. Absolutely. Let me start off with a few go-to tools that I almost always do to start off and get my brain in the space of it. Okay. All right. I got to wait for Maya to power on. Maya. Bum, bum. Here we go. So I have recently made stuff because I'm always making stuff. And I'm going to see if I can find some reasonably complicated assets for you. Mine's still thinking. So I'll just let that chooch. Okay. Nope, still nothing. It's still thinking. Okay. Alrighty. Yeah, okay. Anybody here a Gravity Falls fan? Just me? Okay. Yup. Okay, well, I made Bill, kind of. I wanted to make Bill the statue of him, of his remnants after he was defeated, right? So I made Bill. And I'm going to use Bill as an example for some of our demo stuff. And since we've got some questions about unwrapping Bill, I'm going to actually make a duplicate of Bill. And let's hide all that. Oops. We'll call this Bill Unwrap Demo. Okay, the geometry is so clean. I'm so jealous. You know, I could probably walk you through some advice on how I did it, but I'll just say that he wasn't rotated first. First, I had him perfectly like kind of oriented straightforward, so I could really play with a lot of these things. And for the most part, it's nothing that you don't already know in terms of like subdivision. Start with a low poly, work with low poly as much as you can, and try not to overthink it. Okay, so but I got Bill here. And if I were to look at him closely, oh sure, I have an unwrapped Bill demo already. He's already done. I have another version of him. Oh, okay, I've got a Bill. Oh, the auto unwrap. That's right. This was part of my demo I wanted to show you guys. Okay. So let's move him out of here. Just doing some scene management here. Okay, we've got Bill here. This is some ugly unwrap, isn't it? This is not great. This is Bill. And this was his UVs before I did anything to I modeled it, and now we got scary. Somebody said, Andre, you know, if you were forced to deal with this as it is, you'd be right. If I had to go in here and find like how to, like, what is that even? Okay, so firstly, let's just all accept that this is garbage. And you do not actually have to adopt this nightmare, Brandon. You know, this is not really a nightmare. This is something that's like, hey, we tried to help you. And we're like, no, it didn't need your help. Let's not worry about it. Now, what you could like possibly do if you came in here and you deleted these, they would go away. But the problem is that we do need them to exist. Okay. So the way that Maya kind of treats on UVs is that they either exist or they don't. And they always exist by default unless you delete them. I'm wanting to model a simple car for my final, so I'm really worried about the UV unwrap. Oh, I understand that. And I mean, I gotta say that like his hand was a bit of a challenge. I mean, obviously it looks like poo-poo when it's all low poly, but when you subdivide it, it actually looks like, oh, that looks like a cartoon. That's kind of what I was going for. But, you know, we come over here, that unwrapping this is going to be a challenge, except it's almost never really is as much of a challenge as you think when you first look at this. So advice, do not judge the difficulty of the unwrap based off of the spider webby mess that you first see when you open up. Firstly, there is a very fast and easy solve you should always do to start, which is what I always do. It's what I always do. You do you, but this is what I always do. Let's go to Show UV Toolkit. Tools, Show UV Toolkit. I should say that with more authority. Go to Create, because as I said, Maya, like, well, if you don't have UVs, we got to create them. Now, by default, they might already exist, but we can override the creation of UVs. So that's what we're going to do. Now, the Create has all of these like types of projection types. This is very similarly to how we'll say bounding boxes in bakes occur. They're usually done with a cube type of projection. That's automatic. So if I click automatic, we're going to get some trash. Admittedly, it's not maybe that bad, but I can try to make it here and then try to get this tighter. Maybe, I don't know. It's not really ideal what they've done, especially, and part of the reason why I really wanted to show you my bill was because the way I have him oriented for staging makes all of this much harder. Agreed. I probably could have staged him in Max, but at the end of the day, I really wanted to do this in Substance Painter. So I was staging him all in Maya and I would export him out that way. Or I'm sorry, in Unreal. So ordinarily I would just model him looking straight forward and stage him in Unreal. But I didn't do that in this case. And that's okay. It doesn't mean it was wrong. But if I had originally planned on him going in Unreal, I'd probably go about this a different way, making the automatic possibly a better solution. Here's another problem though. I really don't like how automatic solves for some of these projections. And even if he was oriented correctly, doesn't mean I'll get a perfect or clean automatic creation here. So I don't like this and I rarely use it. So advice, instead of sticking with automatic, try planar instead. Now, when you do a left planar projection, now this is different. This is what it is doing. I'm sorry, just a left click planar projection. It's taking a snapshot of only one direction and stretching everything else. What I like about it though, is that it gives me context for what was a spider web of a mess of UVs. Just takes all of that anxiety away. Just blah, blah. Now, there are 3 axes, meaning there are 3 different planar projections that you can do. So you can do left click, middle mouse click, right click. Let's look at that on the grid. All right. Now, if you can see this little guy right down here, X looks like that. Okay, makes sense. See it on the X axis right here. Let me move this up a little bit. There we go. Middle mouse click is Y. Okay, so that's top down. And Z, which is the right mouse click, does it on this way, on the front axis. And what's interesting, so if I was to look at this from the front view, Z, it'd be what hits your face. That's what hits your face. Try your best to remember that X and Y is the same axes that your algebra teacher or your calculus teacher used to make you draw when they were making you draw grids for your equations, you know? So you'd have to start off with X and Y at the top, X at the bottom, or X on the right. And you had to graph your stuff. Remember that? Don't worry, we'll make you do that. But that's what this means. So X is this way, Y is this way, Z is your face. As though a grid came off of the page is the Z. And that's the third one. That's the new one they introduce you to after you've already had X and Y ingrained in your brain. So that's how I'll usually remember it. Not all 3D softwares necessarily respect that. Sometimes they'll flip and have like X be out and Z be, you know, sometimes things change, but that's okay. However, this is usually what I would start with. I'd be like, okay, now I have context. Now I understand what I'm looking at. I usually start off doing camera-based project. Yeah, you could do that too. Should I be watching out for flipped faces when I cut and organize the UVs? You shouldn't have to. Yeah, you should always be looking for flipped faces. And when you mean flipped, do you mean flipped in the UVs, but not on the geometry here? Like the normals are okay and rendering okay, but over here they're flipped?
Yeah, because it just makes sense when I do camera, because I'm like, oh, this object looks like this, and I cut.
Right.
But then it might be the backside might be flipped.
So in this case right here, these guys are flipped. It's not really the end of the world if they stay flipped. It's not like you've done anything wrong per se, but it'll very likely not unwrap very well, because Maya kind of struggles if it's flipped to relax it. Okay, so I like to by default try to flip them to a normal space so that they unwrap, or I keep saying unwrap because that's how they do it in Max. But in this case here, unfold. So they'll unfold a little bit nicer. So by default, to start off, do yourself a favor, just throw a quick planar on there to give your brain some context. And then we can start looking at where you would like to make cuts. Cuts should only really be done with edges. Don't worry about anything else. Don't try to like, well, I want these to be cut. Now, if you really want to work that way, let's say that you really wanted to create these guys and I want this to be unwrapped and cut around there. Well, first off, you wouldn't use cut in this case, but I can actually help you make the very same effect. So I'm gonna also select one in here because the bevel, I would like it to go right down the middle. This is why I would normally use a cut, but that's okay if you don't want to do it. However your brain works. And I'll show you another trick. Whoop, whoop. Oopsie daisy. Hopefully you're with me so far and we're able to select geometry that we're trying to separate out to be its own thing. Now, I definitely don't want that. But all right, so I can tell like I've selected a bunch of geometry, but it's on the wrong dimension, right? It's just like practically a line here. What do I do? Well, we know that if we hit planar, it'll take a snapshot on a direction. Well, maybe if I did it on the X, hey, look at that. I've got another, hey, please, another thing that I can kind of work on. Now I can tell that it's flipped because it is, in fact, backwards on the text that's here. So that's a good visual marker. But I would have known that it was flipped if I realized or had considered that the faces that I selected here are on the negative space of the X. So when I hit X and it's negative, what's an X value times -1? Negative that, right? Okay. All right. I promise I won't make you do any math. I just like how you can connect them if you want to. So Lyndon, if you didn't know, you can go to transform and then scroll on down within transform where it says tools, and you can do a flip on either the U or the V. So if you flip it on the U, it'll flip it horizontally. And now I am no longer inverted. I am now the correct direction, no longer flipped. Yes.
Very cool.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. I like it. So that's how you can create like a separate plane of just a selection of faces. If you've got a very low poly, that's a reasonable method of going around this. I'm going to make a cut this time though. Let's go here. I'm going to double click this edge right here, knowing that it will loop around because I was clean on my geometry and I want that to be cut. I want that to be cut. Yes, I do. I will go down now to cut and sew. And cut and sew works exactly like you'd think. Cut will separate those pieces, sew will weld them together. Now I can see that I've got a line right here. That's pretty good. I'm going to now go ahead and click this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy, and do the same thing. Yeah, okay, good. Hit cut. Whoop. Mainly because I want to show you how unfold works. Go here and there. All right, cut. Now, if I were to, I've got a back face, front face, and a side right there. All right. Now, this guy here, you could go ahead and do a planar projection. That's one way to solve it. It would work really well. It would work just like this guy. You can also come over here to unfold and go whoop, and it would unfold it for you. It did like do some weird things to its scale, but it does essentially the same thing. Unfold. Do. Or again, like I said, you could just do a quick planar projection. The same thing. All right. Are you with me so far? We still doing okay? Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to show you. I think you would know how you'd probably go around the rest of this here. Like this guy, it looks pretty good, but I'd want to at least relax him or unfold him and get a little bit more uniform around the eyeball. That's why that looks a little weird. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we're really trying to do away with unnecessary stretching. Sometimes there's always going to be a little bit, and I am actually pretty okay with that. Pretty okay with that stretching. Now, let's get a little weird. I'm going to select that, and maybe if I, I gotta, this isn't going to loop select because I did some weirdness with the geometry, and that's okay. I can still get most of it here. Perfect. I'm going to do now a grow from here. Oop. I want that guy to be its own piece, and I'm going to use planar because I think it would just look good, and I want it on the Y, so I'll use my middle mouse click. That over here. I'm going to now do a cut around here. And here. Cut. And now I've got these two pieces, which I'll do the same thing. I'll just do a Y planar projection. It's pretty good. All right. But this guy, like, what do we do with this guy? Now, just like I do with pretty much any time I'm unwrapping anything, is that I look at the create and see what I can do with it. But planar doesn't always help me here. So there's two methods that we can go about this. We can either make a cut here somewhere that we're comfortable, like that. Cut, select those faces and unfold. And hey, I'm actually not too upset with how that turned out. That's pretty decent. It's pretty decent. If this were upright, you could also get away with a cylinder map where it would almost do the same thing for you. But because this is like at a tilt, the cylinder is not quite ideal. Sometimes you can like rotate the cylinder. Nope. Yeah, I'm not really able to do it. So in this method, just making a slice right on down here and doing an unfold is plenty good. So this is how I would get to work on unwrapping my bill model.
It looks like the cut that you just made went down the rim of the hat too. Is that going to matter?
It did here. You're right. I don't actually love that. I think I would probably stop that there. Or what you can do is, let's say that I want that to be welded. I want those to be sewn together. It would actually change how this unfolds a bit. Let's actually test it. I'm gonna unfold it. Boop. And it's not too bad. I didn't get any weird pulling, but it could maybe cause a seam that we don't want. So if you select that edge, we can go to sew, and it is no longer our problem. Now selection. Something that like drives me bonkers about Maya is that when I want to select, say, like one edge or vert or something, I'll select it and then it'll move it on the other side over here too. I'm like, but why? Okay. What you'll want to use if you want to avoid that are the selections on the right, shell selection versus face or edge selection. Because these here are going to operate like they do on the 3D asset, but over here kind of respects that these are 2D images. So that means now I can come over here and select this vert and it not affect the other vert that it technically is in the 3D model. For example, if I selected this vertice now here, boop, notice that they are the same vert. And of course they are. I mean, they are in 3D space. It's the same guy. And that's what Maya's trying to be helpful here. Not ideal. But if you use this guy here, you now can select only the vert that you want to actually edit. Right, please? Okay, all right, fine. I can't deselect that for whatever reason. Now I can move one without it affecting the other. That's another helpful tip. Okay. I usually start off to do, oh yeah, you said that part. All right. Any questions? Any other questions about how to unwrap your stuff? So just to clarify, is the final an interior scene? Well, Ashley, I'm not going to require it to be an interior scene, but if you do an exterior, please be careful to stage your space, because if you have like a whole horizon in front of you, your assets will feel very empty and your scene will be very empty. So I would like to encourage you to stick with an interior, but if you've really got it in your heart for an exterior, I won't hold you back. Okay, cool. All right. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this bill because I have some other things to talk about, but we are going to bring Bill back, I promise. Let me select. I've got this guy can hide. Bill base, you can also hide. These guys. Okay. Bill, auto. Okay. I have two examples of Bill here because I want to show you how we want to actually consider unwrapping and what that means for our lighting. Okay. So let's not worry about Bill right now. Let's look at Unity. I'm sorry, Unreal. Now, I did something before we got started is I made a very quick stage of my modular building pieces. Now, you don't have to do this for your scene, but I mean, not a bad idea, especially if we're trying to have a stage for a few assets for you. This is a great way of hiding that background. And of course, like this is missing a door, it's missing a window. I'm aware of all those things. But something else I did is I also rotated the light to be coming in and not the other way around, not as though it were already within the space, because this is not, this shows that it's an open space. So I just rotated the directional light for a little smoke and mirrors here. So now this feels like light is coming in from the space outside, and that is going to have a bit to play with my actual bake. Now, some of you have already tried to do this with your assets, and we may or may not have a problem. That's the reality of it. We may or may not have a problem. When we run a bake, and I'm going to go ahead and run one real quick. Unreal is referencing the UVs of your meshes to inform the light map bake. However, by default, though, that is okay. That is not great, actually. That does not look fantastic. We've got some weirdness here. There's a lot of reasons for that, okay? Firstly, by default, if you were very careful when you imported your asset, let's say I'm going to go ahead and just do a fake import right now. I'm not actually importing anything. When you bring in your FBX imports right here, and you click reset to default, let's say that you were like, I just want to make sure I'm not messing anything up, but reset to default. Generate light map UVs is set to true by default, which means it's going to create a second channel or a second set of UVs for your meshes that will be just the UV bake. That's it. All right, so I'm gonna actually cancel that. I want to take a closer look at our meshes that I brought in that time. What feel like a long time ago, my modular set. All right, so here's my pieces. Looking kind of lonely, not very set up. But if I look at the very top up here where it says UV and I click that and I'll say, oh, it's got a UV channel 0 and a UV channel 1. 0 is always the very first channel. Okay, that's the one you are used to working with. You use UV channel 0 anytime you make a material. And that's the only thing you've ever worked in. Now, they were kind enough to give you a UV channel 1 to inform your light bake, but let's take a look at it. UV channel 0. Yep, that looks like my weird use of the texture or the trim sheet. Remember when we made a trim sheet and you're like, but I'm not supposed to overlap UVs. This is confusing me. Because in Unreal, when we bring it in, by default, we'll create a second channel of UVs for us. And notice how now these are nicely laid out for us. They are. And that's what's being used here. This is great. Unreal did that. Yes, Unreal did that. You didn't have to do anything except for just this one setting when you imported your asset. Like, check this out. Let me bring in that light make bake test, okay? If you reset this to 0 and this was not set to false. So very unlikely that this was set to false unless you did that at some point, which is fine if you did. But why would we or would we not want to do this? Well, something else to know. Let's cancel that. Come back over here to our wall asset. UV channel 1 is always the light bake. Or I guess we could say the last UV channel is always going to be the light bake. All right. Would we ever want to control this second channel? Yes, we would. There are many times where we would want to, and I'm about to give you an example. All right. So let's take a look at Maya here. All right. I've got Bill unwrapped and I've got Bill not unwrapped. But for this demo, actually, we're going to talk about Bill not unwrapped. I'm going to hide you, Bill. You're going to come over here. We're going to put you back to 0, please. I got Bill over here. In this metaphor, Bill's UVs are actually exactly where I want them. Now, clearly they're not, but I want my UVs to repeat or tile in a way, the way my trim sheets would, or the way my tiling textures would, right? So I'm comfortable with that. So I'm going to just trust that Unreal is going to unwrap these things for me. So I'm going to export Bill with just crappy UVs and let Unreal do the work. Now, actually, let me make sure that I don't have any other. I don't think I do here, but let's go to texture. UV set editor. Yep, I've only got that one. Okay. All right. Go to file, export, selection. And I've got a couple of UVs over here. I've got Bill auto unwrap test. That's what we're going to do. This is going to be our boy. All right. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. Come back over here. Just add meshes. I am going to bring in Bill now. Auto unwrap. Yep. Please generate light map UVs. I'm not changing anything. Import all. Yes. Okay, got some smoothing group information error. Ain't no thing. So it's cool. Go with it. There's Bill. Now I'm aware that he's like embarrassingly small. So let's make him 10, 10, and 10. F again. Bring up Bill. Come here, Bill. Woo. Let's do a quick little bake with Bill, because this has probably been some of your experiences. I brought my stuff in. I did the build. I did the light build. See what happens. Maps need to be built. Okay, well, that doesn't look great. We'll give it a chance to think. Maybe it's fine. I recommend everybody have a smoothie once a day. Oh, yum. Oh, okay. Nothing too serious. Looks, I bet everything is fine. Light map issues. Okay. It's actually looking better than I thought it would, because I've had some real bad bakes in the past. Let's take a look at Bill. Come here, Bill. Get your UVs. Channel 1. Okay. Well, that's not ideal. In fact, it looks maybe a little similar to that auto unwrap option in Maya, which will give us some weird seams. We can maybe play around with this to see if it works for us. Let's close all that out. Okay. Now, all right. Let's pretend that this is actually comfortable for you. Maybe you're okay with this. I'm super not. I can see a seam right here I'm not liking. I'm seeing some bad seams here. You might even get real bad artifacts in here that we didn't even account for. That's very possible. But we got some like weird stretching. This is not. Oh. Ooh. While we appreciate Unreal's helpful nature, automated solutions does not always garner the best results. And we can agree that this is one of those things that isn't ideal. Okay. So what do we do, Neho? I want to have a mesh that might be reasonably complicated. What's interesting too is Bill, the mesh is not even that bad. He's not even that bad. I actually think what I'm going to do is I'm going to export him in the subdivided mode so that we can get a, maybe we'll get a better bake. I don't know. Let's give it a try. I don't know. Export selection. Bill auto unwrap test. There we go. Please and thank you. Let's re-import. Yep, smoothed. All right, let's try that. Maybe this will be interesting. Oh, well, we got those last time, but maybe it's fine. Okay. Ah! What happened to you, Bill? Okay. Dare I even look at this thing? What? Oh, it's more of bad. Okay, we get it now. You made your point. Unreal does things for you, but maybe it's not always the best solution. Now, you will find that Unreal's answers to this problem are reasonably good for simple meshes that would be boxes. But like even here, we're getting some weirdness, right? So how do I do it? How do I edit that second UV channel and import that from Maya or from my 3D editor instead of just relying on Unreal to do it for me? Okay, let's talk about it. If we go to our UV editor here, now remember, I'm happy with these UVs. I'm not, but for the sake of the metaphor, this is where I wanted the UVs to lay when it comes to the material application, how I want it to sit on my smart material. But it's not how I want the lighting material to work. Where do I edit that? Go to UV sets right here, UV set editor, and you can create a new set. It's called UV set. And we'll say, in this case, it's the light map. Light map. You don't have to name it if you don't want to. It's always going to take the second one as the light map anyway, or the last one. Okay, so notice how I don't have anything. What do I do, guys? What do I do? Tell me.
Create.
Create. Yes, UV toolkit. Create. Automatic. Call it a day. Just kidding. Now, some of you might be fine with that. It just depends on the mesh. We know that that's not great for Bill. Okay. Now, what I did do though, is because I don't have to go through a whole new unwrapping of this guy, is that I did do this already. Okay. UV toolkit. Let's look at the UV sets. Set editor. Just kidding. Please select this in textures. UV sets. Editor. Okay. So here I've got the original crappy caca poo poo UVs, or maybe just UVs that kind of break the law a bit, right? As we understood them in the trim sheet and in the tiling material methods. And then we've got a light map bake. And you'll notice that like if you take some care in this, you can get, I think, a reasonably good, you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to bring up Bill here a second. And I'm going to leave this auto unwrap and we'll do a test on both. Because I mean, I don't know. I'm willing to eat crow if this is a significantly okay and detailed light map. So I mean, why not, right? Let's test it. I'll put my money where my mouth is. So this one here now is the auto map. That's fine. I'll take that. I'll leave it there. Export selection. I'll call this Bill auto unwrap. Yeah, I'll leave it there. This close. And this guy, hide beside you. And then Bill, we've got my cleaner, more controlled, lovely articulated, regular unwrap. Now I just unwrapped them like I normally would. I just created a second UV tool set UV set. I just created another one and in there or organized it as such. Okay, that's the only difference. Export selection. Whew. Bill custom unwrap. And Bill, I want to make sure that you are 3D. Okay, yeah, you were subdivided. Good, that's great. So I'm gonna actually delete this because I'm gonna play around now with the setting. Yes, force delete. Yes, Bill, we unwrap you. Lambert 1, you can go away too. All right. Now, for both of these imports now, I'm going to check that little box. I'm going to check that box that says, do not create UV set. Do not create the light map UVs. Take the ones I gave you. So let's go ahead and bring in first. I'm going to bring in Bill Auto Unwrap. This is the automatic slap that we tried because we're going to test it. Turn off. No, false. Generate light map UVs. False. Import. Please and thank you. And then I've got Bill Custom Unwrap. Light map UVs false is still set to false because Unreal is really trying to be helpful for you and it saves your previous settings. If you ever want to reset them, just hit reset right here and I'll start you over. Import, please. Yes, please. Thank you. All right. So I've got Bill Auto Unwrap, Bill Custom Unwrap, and both of you, we will increase the size so we can see you better because Neho did not do a good job with her scale. Go here. All right. Pop you up here. I like it. This is auto. This is custom. Oh, Bill. Why couldn't you just be a good guy? Okay. All right. I'm quite pleased with how their imports. They look nice. Very good. Let's try it. Let's just try a build. Let's see how it goes. A build.
Leave.
I will see myself out. Okay. Well, I gotta say, while my custom unwrap is not perfect, it's considerably, I think, a little bit easier on the eyes than some of this other stuff here. You know? It's not bad, but neither of them are very good. So now we're starting to see that, okay, like how I lay this out can have an impact on the rest of this. But okay, what's wrong with this now? Can anybody give me any ideas? What's broken about this?
The why it's broken or
Yeah.
the okay.
Like what? Like why do you think? And that's okay if you don't know, because I haven't really articulated this with you yet. But if you were to look at this and take a guess, do you have any guesses? Okay, I will tell you. Right now, the resolution on these maps are so low that the pixels are like that would be on the texture map overlay are very like large on the whole thing. It's blurring it all, really. That's kind of what's happening here. And how can we investigate it? How can I look closer and actually get in here and edit some of this stuff? Well, in the viewports where it says lit, we could actually change what is being rendered to us by the information that we want. Now, I won't go into all of this. This is bananas, right? What you can do, totally go down this rabbit hole sometime. But for us, if we go into, let's see, optimization modes, view modes, and then go to light density, we're going to see the density of the light map bake. Light complexity is interesting too, because this will inform you where you might have too much lighting overlapping. We'll talk about that in a future class, but right now let's look at light map density. Okay. Light map density is a little wonky here. Got some, you can start to see where there was weird stretching from that auto unwrap, but okay, mine's looking nicer over here, but the density could stand to be increased a bit. So if you go ahead and select any bill here, we'll look at my bill and then the other bill. Oh dear. The blue means it's very low density. And as the color gets warmer, and I don't mean pink, pink is what you have selected. As the colors get warmer, the more intense or the density and the resolution of those light maps go up. We don't want this too high, but if it's an important asset, this is a decision that you make about how important is it that the light affects this piece compared to other pieces. Okay. Like I probably wouldn't care about the light map back here as I would in the front. Right. So that's okay. Right. So let's look at our assets here. They're pink because I have them selected, not because they're too high. And when you have an asset selected, let's just use one of them. Let's use the custom unwrap, my guy here. Scroll on down to lighting. In the lighting section here, you can click override light map resolution. Right there it is. In fact, I got to make sure that I'm recording this, but my face isn't in the way, and it is no longer in the way. I've moved it. All right. Overridden light map res to 64. 64 is a standard. It's pretty low. Now, the rules of texture maps apply here because remember the light map overlay and the bake, that's on a texture. So we have to stay with the power of 2 rule here. 64. What's a higher resolution from 64 that is a power of 2?
Is it 240?
250, 256?
Okay, yeah, that's
so yeah,
what I
we've got
meant.
64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, and so on and so on. So here, let's just double it. Let's go 128. All right. Okay. We don't want to go much higher than that. Let's do this. And we'll do the same thing for you. Maybe you too will be better off for having a higher resolution. Let's go back to lit. And now let's do bake. Better. Mine's better though. Mine's better. This auto is still not great, but mine's better. Okay. Now, this is a way that you can start to optimize a little bit the bake settings here and how you would like to do this. I think we also want to make sure that this is set to static, which it is, or at the very least, static and dynamic shadows. This is fine here. We can even play around with some other settings here, but like this is where we start to fix that light bake situation. And such it is will be over here as well. I could say that these guys here could probably stand to increase their resolution to get a better effect in terms of our light, because like this is hurting. Let's go down here. I don't know. Let's overlay this. Let's do 256. All right, build. It'll take a little longer, and I'm lagging a little bit whenever it bakes it. That's normal. Still not great. We have some light bake issues. You know, I might actually consider going in here and editing these myself in Maya, because I'm not liking how this is turning out. But it's better than it was. It's at least slightly better. This guy here could use some help too. All right. Let me see. Now, for anybody who's maybe interested in very beautiful lighting, the things that Unreal does very well. Firstly, this method of using the CPU by default is not going to get those real hot results, but we can actually resolve a lot of these artifacts with some tweaking and adjusting, fixing the resolution, tweaking and editing the UVs in Maya. But for those of you that are interested to like goof around, what you want to look at is GPU light mask bakes. However, this does kind of require a slightly more powerful computer usually. But it is also about enabling a plugin. And I do teach this in 218, how to get really beautiful lighting. For any of you that are interested, I could probably find an old lesson in which I've done that and share it with you in the Canvas, but I don't want there to be any confusion. That is not a lesson that is required. You do not have to do GPU light mask bakes, but it is pretty cool how beautiful you can get a lot of these lighting tricks and how to get in there, do cool stuff. All right, let's take a little bit of a break. I've been talking at you for a while, and we can keep playing around and plugging around with some lighting. Took me 20 minutes before Unreal responded after enabling it. Yeah, that's another thing. Thank you, Brandon. When you enable GPU light masks, and you go into your settings and you turn on ray tracing, it takes like 30 minutes for Unreal to open your project, and that's normal. So if you do that, don't panic. Maybe just like go get dinner or something and come back when it's all done. But it creates really beautiful lighting effects. But then it was pretty and fine to work with. Yep, exactly that. It's a little advanced though, so I wouldn't make this class do it, but this is where we get started with that. Okay. Like I said, I've been kind of talking at you for a while. Why don't we take a 15-minute break? And at 1:45, we'll come back. We can talk more stuff in Unreal, or I can give you some time in class to think about what you would like to be making for your final. All right, so 1:45, we'll come back. Now, we have a couple of options in front of us for today. how many of you feel that you need time now to start pulling references for the type of scene that you want to create for your final? You do. Okay. Andre does. Taro does. I do. I could do that. Okay. Cool. All right then. With that in mind, if I were to recommend some tips on doing the actual pulling of references, nothing beats reality, but I also know that there's very little opportunity to be able to get out there and see some spaces. But if you were interested in doing a scene that is a little bit more grounded in practicality speaking, visiting spaces that do that are the best thing that you can do. But assuming that that's not a thing anybody can do, or and we certainly can't do that in class right now. ArtStation has great illustrations. I even think Instagram has some pretty good illustration work as well, and that it's a little bit more curated than say like a Google Images search. I think I could get references quickly. I mean, you probably could, but you can get them fast if you really know what you want to make. If you are really fully aware of what you want to make, then yes, you could. Yeah. So, but some of you might not necessarily be ready for that, and that's okay. But let's say that many of you have got some ideas. I would like to give you about 20 or 30 minutes to go down those rabbit holes and start pulling those images and references. Just start thinking about what it is that you'd like to make. I will recommend that having an amount of story will help the piece be a little bit more portfolio worthy than just a really nice technical demo that like, look what I was able to make. Like that, sure. But if you could tell a little bit of a story, give it a little bit of a mood or a theme, ooh, that's the stuff that gets you jobs. So I would like to encourage you to look into that too. Do we have opportunity to put simple animation? I mean, you absolutely could. I cover that I'd say a little bit more detail in 218, but I can show you how to be just properly dangerous enough to make things move in Unreal. Like I could do that this week. I was thinking of smoke. Oh, the simple PNG or something. So what you'll want to be looking into is like a particle system, particle effect, like Niagara. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe we could possibly talk about that. See if we get time. But yeah, Niagara is a little bit beastly, but you can do a lot of cool things in it. Okay, everyone. Let's say we'll take about 20 minutes, and I'll check in and poke you about sharing, or if you have any questions about like what you should be making. I could make use of some particles in mine too. Ooh, okay, all right, okay. So that's 2 votes for particle system discussion. Okay, neat. Good to know. Right. All right, I'll go ahead and share some of that chill again. Please. In the meantime,